Hey everyone, welcome to today's episode of the Williams Summit. My name is Julius and I'm going to be your student host here today. I'm a senior. We're fortunate to have the co-founders of EphDelivers, Brennan and Wyatt Khosrowshahi. I guess to start, you two, before we get into EphDelivers, you guys mind introducing yourselves and just like telling us where you're from, like what sport you play, that kind of thing, and your majors.
Take it on.
Yeah. So my name's Wyatt Khosrowshahi. I was originally a class of 21, but like Brennan, I'm currently taking a gap year. So I'll now be class of 22. I'll be a senior this fall. I'm a political science major and I'm from Briarcliff, New York.
Sports.
Oh, sorry. I play on the squash and
Yeah,
golf.
got it rep.
Cool sport.
Especially the squash side.
I'm Brennan Lee. I'm also taking a full year off, so I'll be class of 22. I am a bio major who's on the pre-med track. I'm from Los Angeles, and I'm part of the swim and dive team.
Gotcha. Awesome. So now we can get into EphDelivers. So for those who don't know, what is it? Like, what is EphDelivers?
Yeah, so EphDelivers is a delivery, and we would extend a little beyond. We offer various services surrounding delivery and food purveying in the Berkshire area and to Williams College students, mostly in Williamstown, but we've done North Adams as well. And so we offer a couple different services, mostly geared towards students again, where we deliver from local restaurants. So your favorites on Spring Street, and then also including places like Berkshire Palette, for example, which are nearby. And we deliver daily, 7 days a week from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. and from 5 p.m. to 8 p.m. And we also provide a service where we deliver from the grocery store, Stop and Shop, or Walgreens, again, meeting student needs. We run that 3 times a week, Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday. And on top of that, we've also partnered with a couple local businesses, both within the college and outside the college, which are like Duke Beverages, and then
Willie's
Willie's Chicken,
Camel Garden.
Yeah, and Good Night Kitchen. So we do those on more of a to order basis, and then once a week we'll do drop offs from those places as people can order more directly.
Got you. That's awesome. And so so far from, I'm a loyal customer, but it sounds like you guys have really adapted to student needs, but where did you start? Where did the idea start, and how did that story kind of come up?
Yeah, so the idea kind of started this summer, which is actually how Wyatt and I met. We met because we spent the summer here, and we were looking at next year and joking with our friends because we knew we weren't coming back, but they would have to do the initial on-campus quarantine. So we were kind of like, hey, we'll deliver food for you guys. They had some pre-packaged meals. And then we were sitting down, we're like, we could actually do this. And so from there, we're like, okay, what are the next steps we need to take? And so we started reaching out to some businesses and restaurants on Spring Street, and it was really eye-opening to see that they were telling us how much that of a struggle it's been because of COVID. And, over the summer, there was no theater festival. And so we're like, we want to help the community, and we think that there will be a need for this. So we reached out to restaurants, said that we'll start offering delivery, set up some social media accounts, set up our Venmo, and then we just started making deliveries on our own, and it slowly grew. And restaurants were reaching out to us after a while because they're like, this is, a kind of a needed service at this point.
That's really awesome. And so it sounds like you guys have been able to adapt. Do you mind kind of getting into that, like how your business model or how EphDelivers has changed? Maybe a student asked for something or a restaurant asked for something, and you guys kind of were there to meet that need.
Yeah, so I would say one of the early things we had to figure out was pricing. And so the way we do pricing is we do a flat $5 delivery fee on orders under $35. Which we kind of had to implement that so that if we delivered a smoothie for $6 or something that we weren't, 10 minutes in the car for 50 cents. And then we charge 15% over $35 for bigger deliveries, where we might also be driving further, especially Stop and Shop. There's a lot of labor that goes into picking from places. So we started initially with implementing a couple restaurants that people loved. We talked to the business owners there, which included Spring Street Market, Blue Mango, sort of your meat and potatoes right there on Spring Street. And then we also ran the grocery business. And in our minds, based on the situation of the students, the grocery business we thought would be extremely busy because we thought like there's this demand for groceries. Students can't go out and get their own. I was kind of like, how can people not need groceries living in dorms? And it was sort of surprisingly slow for almost the first couple of months, I would say. But then we sort of gained some brand recognition. And especially once we came back for second semester, then it was like, oh, like we kind of expected that there were a lot of grocery orders. There were all of a sudden it would be a day or 2 days worth of orders, and we would have 9 different Stop and Shop orders that we had to fill, which might be, pretty big orders each. They might be like $40, $50, $60 each. So that was
definitely
really
been one of those, I think.
Yeah, I would say it was slow at the beginning, but brand name recognition was really important in that transformation.
Yeah. Also, in terms of adaptation, I mean, Wyatt and I, or I guess especially me, I had pretty much no real knowledge about business, how to run a business, anything of that. And so when we were trying to figure out how do we want to run this in the most efficient way possible, from like things like if we get an order, what do we do? Do we text them this? Do we email them? How do we get these notifications out? So there was a lot of trial and error in the beginning, especially like, even like figuring out how we're going to have people pay us. Do we want to go cash? Do you want to go Venmo? Do you want to go credit card? So a lot of trial and error and adaptation, but each time we try something, right, we'll be like, did that work? What could have been better? And then slowly you get a more efficient model.
And so you mentioned like, not having any like business training. I was curious, was there any place where, the Williams College, like liberal arts mindset, like stepped in and kind of helped out there? Or was it something you kind of had to learn off on your
I
own?
would say the liberal arts mindset definitely kicked in, because when we'd spoke to Tony O'Palmer from the head of entrepreneurship at Williams, and it was sort of, the response was sort of, people had this idea, but it was difficult to implement and they didn't know how to go about it. And we sort of sat down and had the idea. And as opposed to saying, okay, what does maybe an ideal, or what does this business look like in a form that is ready for the market, we just kind of said, okay, we want to set up a delivery business. What can we do to start that, to even inch towards doing it? And so we're like, oh, we can make a Facebook page. We can make an Instagram. Then we said, oh, we need to take orders. So we said, oh, we can make Google Forms. And then all of a sudden we actually had an admittedly early stage, but a functioning way that we could get our name across and we could get orders. And it worked. It worked for a number of months. And then once we had that brand name, and once, to be frank about it, we weren't in a position where we were going to lose money if we wanted to spend a bit of money, because we didn't want to be a losing company off the bat. Then we said, oh, now we can look into developing a website. And I think because we didn't try and do it too early, actually, our website came out better than if we tried to initially start with a website and been more aggressive like that, because we had an idea of what we wanted before we had an idea of what we wanted before we actually made the website. Whereas on the other way, I think that we might have tried to make a website from the start without knowing what the use cases would be like, which really just hits to, like, there's a book by Eric Ries called The Lean Startup, which I think like we kind of learned, which is like just get product out there so you can get feedback immediately. And I think that really worked for us, was that we had the idea and just said, what can we do to get this rolling, even if it's not ideal from the onset.
Yeah. Also, that, I mean, liberal arts mindset is kind of that you're not just stuck in this box, you're not on one path. And so like me being pre-med, starting a food and groceries delivery business is kind of something I'd never thought of. But I mean, if you have a community here of other, like-minded students, they're also interested in exploring new things. And there are tons of student entrepreneurs that are doing like their own small businesses that are just kind of not related to their career path at all. And so it's really cool that we have this environment that kind of fosters this creativity and kind of like go try it, go try. You never know.
And maybe it's just me, but I'm like starting to notice it a little bit more, like even within the past year than it was like my first 3 years here. I wasn't sure if that's something you guys have seen. You guys have been in it, so I'm like curious if that's something you've noticed as well.
Not to toot our own horns too much, but it's been really cool that people that want to do, whatever their own small business stuff. So like Duke Beverages, for example, or Willie's Chicken, they're kind of like, oh, we need, or it's like really want this delivery aspect. And since this is something in place, I think that would help us a lot. So it's really cool being able to help other student entrepreneurs in their own ventures.
Yeah, talk a little bit about that. I mean, specifically Willie's Chicken, he's going to be also on the show as well, I think right after you guys. So, I mean, talk about how that partnership formed and like how those student relationships kind of work.
He reached out to us and basically said, "Hey,
this is Nemo, right?
This is Nemo, yeah." And he's like, "I've been cooking some chicken for my pod, and they really seem to enjoy it." And then he was like, "Do you guys want to taste test? And then let me know, because I would love to start, distributing this and have a delivery aspect to that." So we got our sample, and it was kind of funny because before we ate it, we were like, this could either be like really good or it could be awful. And I don't really know if I'm supposed to text sorry, but it ended up being absolutely delicious. And then we're like, cool. So we, talked about how much we charge for delivery, like how do we want the pickups to work? How do we want communication to work? And now we deliver for them every Sunday. So people have the option to pick up or do delivery. And so it's cool being also a part of Willie's Chicken.
And that's how a lot of our partnerships formed with student partners, community partners, which was really cool, was people just reaching out to us and saying, hey, like we could use a delivery service. Whereas at the beginning, when we weren't established, it was a little more of like us reaching out to our favorite place and people like, oh, maybe we'll try it. But then all of a sudden you establish yourself a little, and we had people reaching out to us, and we could like form more specific relations and work on calendars, and it's really exciting.
That's awesome. So let's get into it. I guess biggest challenge and like our greatest lesson.
Oh, biggest challenge.
I think the biggest challenge for me, at least, was the beginning, because there's definitely an accelerating rate of traffic. So I'd say for our first few weeks, we thought we were going to have like a really strong launch, because we were especially saying, oh, there are going to be all these students in quarantine now. And like, how can it not make sense that so many students are going to order? And I mean, it was just really slow at the beginning. Just weren't getting that many orders. And we'd look at the end of the day and we'd be like, wow, that really wasn't much. And then you just sort of keep doing it and people hear the name. And then you have a combination of a solid core customer base, which is the folks we have who order on a regular basis. And then that trickles into, they tell their friends, and you have sort of a secondary market of people who order sometimes, or maybe even order once or twice, but that's still customer traffic at the end of the day. And so I'd say it almost like really started to kick on more than we expected at one point. But for me, the biggest challenge was kind of
not a bad problem to have.
Yeah, was being patient and trusting that it would kick on when we really didn't have that much traffic at one point.
For me, there's two big challenges. One was like more personal. I'm not the most, I guess, on top of it guy out there, not like super organized on it. And all of a sudden when you're doing this, you have to keep track of finances, you have social media, you have emails you got to answer. And so that was a big point of personal growth, and Wyatt was incredibly amazing at helping me through that, just because he's way better at that type of stuff. But it's really cool just kind of being like, okay, you have to be responsible for these aspects. You can't just kind of not do it, because you're running a business. And our number one goal is A, help the community, and B, also like provide a service at a high quality. We want to be friendly, we want it to be efficient. That was definitely a big challenge. And then the second one, I think, is more of kind of like almost like a mental challenge, in like continually being like, how do we make this system better? And it's not as easy as as you think. Like, you'd be like, okay, well, we could try this, and like, nah, but that won't work. We can try this, that won't work. And thank God, though, Williams has also a ton of resources to help with that, and a lot of different groups that are like, we're willing to help and help you brainstorm. So a lot of support from the community.
I think what you mentioned too, I like marketing and social media was one thing where previously I thought, oh, you just kind of do it. Like, you get the whole school to follow you on Instagram. And it's not that easy. Like, there's definitely a skill set that goes into it, and knowing what gains attraction. And there's a lot there that I think has been a
like, what should we post?
Yeah.
Like, the same thing we posted 3 times. Special creative fibers.
That's awesome. All right. So on the flip side, like, greatest win, biggest win.
Oh, biggest wins. There were some days especially early in the spring when we were doing like 13 to 20 orders a day.
Yeah.
And at the
Wow.
end of the day, you're like, that felt really cool. And I remember
Wow.
once we had a customer like in Mission, we dropped off and he was like, honestly, like, thank you guys so much for what you do. Like, you know, really helps a lot. And just kind of hearing that, and I was like, oh, like,
Yeah.
this is, it, you know, it's a really gratifying feeling that you have positively impacted both the customer and also the restaurants. So
I think getting Trail House in the fall. So Trail House reached out to us in the fall when we really weren't very busy, which was a big win for us at the time because that gave us a lot more traffic instantly because they had like a solidified customer base. And it wasn't just us trying to sell. It was that they would take in orders and say, would you like delivery from EphDelivers? And so they were like helping get our brand name out. And those weren't our biggest value deliveries because we were driving a lot for fees that weren't our biggest, especially compared to the grocery service. But that really helped get us on our feet a bit. And then it was almost a secondary win that there came a point where we had to tell them that we can't do as much for them anymore because we were so busy in the Williams bubble, which was between Spring Street, Stop and Shop, and the Williams community, whereas most of Trail House was Trail House to the Williams town community as opposed to college students. So it was almost like a really cool win to come back around and be like, oh, now we're in such sort of a busy spot that we have to like stop taking some of these orders that take up so much time because we have like so many going on and with some of our other restaurants in closer proximity and our other businesses too.
Also, we got a news interview, which is cool.
Oh yeah.
It was a cool like 30 seconds of fame.
That's awesome. That's awesome. That's awesome. So, I mean, what's next? I know you guys next year are going to be in school. Wyatt, you got 2 sports and a bunch of other stuff. Brennan, you're MCAT, I'm sure, if you haven't already. What's next for EphDelivers?
Yeah, so we're trying to figure that out right now, actually. We're working with DFA from Williams, Design for America, and they're also trying to help us sort out what we want to look like. Our initial vision of how our business would become really good to great, as some might say, is that we could partner with the school in some respect. And that's still to some extent our hope. And I would hope that the impression that we had on student life this year would compel them to do something like that. Because if we could partner and deliver a snack bar or something along those lines, it could really streamline the business if we have enough demand on that front, and also just make it more profitable because it's quicker delivery times, potentially lower fees for students, and it's something that's more in the daily routine of a Williams student as opposed to going out of your way and saying, I want to order from the Purple Pub tonight or something like that.
Right.
So we'd like to do that for next year. And I think we would be probably less involved because like you said, we have to return to the lives of normal students, and EphDelivers is very demanding, especially in terms of having specific time windows where you have to be available. And I don't know if that would be a reality that we could embrace next year. So we really want it to continue on, and I'm hopeful that it will, but we're still working out what that would look like, and hopefully a partnership with the school, and then we probably bring on people to help us out on the business side.
Yeah, I mean, there's also, not only do we hope that it will continue, we know that it could be, you know, much more successful because there's so much untapped potential. I mean, for example, just like Wyatt was saying about accelerated growth, like the beginning of the year, you know, getting your name out there is the hardest part. So if you have like underclassmen, especially that don't have access to cars, from the get-go knowing about this service, and also the parents, we've had more parents reaching out to us recently, and parents love kind of being like, oh, I want to get my daughter or son this for their birthday, or get them a meal, or get them something for Stop and Shop. It's
that's awesome.
It's just got huge potential, and we think that with the right people and with the right structure, it could be really successful.
And we had this moment with Gamble Garden where we kind of realized that it only really seniors and juniors and maybe a few sophomores knew what skier was, for example. And it's sort of similar in that because a lot of our customers are freshmen and then parents of freshmen. For freshmen and parents of freshmen, they only know a Williams where like we are offering our service. So we're hoping that is something that sticks with them and they associate with the student experience. Instead, it's almost like a necessity at this point is the hope.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So I guess taking it kind of back to the beginning, you know, where did you guys catch the entrepreneur bug? You know, there's a lot of people that could have, you know, maybe not a lot of people who could have executed as well as you two, but, you know, I feel like a lot of people who could have thought of this idea. Like, why were you the two that made it or did it?
I'm gonna give my hats off to Wyatt on that one, just because it was kind of. I mean, like I'll sometimes come up with good ideas. I'm like, oh, that's like pretty cool. But
Yeah.
having like more expertise and being like taking that first step to be like, oh, we could do this or model it this way, and then from there, I think both of us being interested, open-minded, also having the time for the coming year. It's just kind of the perfect storm for being like, we can try this, why not put ourselves out there? We're taking a year off. We want to do something really cool for the community. And
yeah, I think, I mean, I would give some credit back too, because I always had dreams of some grandiose, startup idea and saying something. And then I think I made the joke initially about like, oh, we can deliver food while you're in quarantine. And then Brennan was like, that's a business. Like we should do that. And like, I think I was laughing at first because like, that's not your vision of a startup, if you call it a startup, I guess. But it's been rewarding, worthwhile, profitable. So it's, I don't know what our valuation would be, but I've really enjoyed it. I'm glad that we did it. So I think
I'm glad that you did it.
Yeah, I think that it's free time, like you said, and also just a willingness to get your feet wet.
Right. And also this is something that like we've said in pretty much like all our interviews and meetings, that it wasn't really anything too special about us. It kind of just took us being like, let's try this. And I think that first step is really the hardest step for most people to take. And then also just putting a little bit extra thought into be like, let's try to come up with a model. And so those like first two steps are really the biggest hump. But after that, we really think that anyone that is dedicated can do it.
Don't be a perfectionist. That was like a big one for us early on. I think we made Google Forms. We took special orders, like Instagram messages. And I mean, if they don't have something that you want at the grocery store, we would text the person and be like, what do you want? So like, it's, but it's still a business that functioned that we made better over time. But it was like getting that first step out, even if it's going to fail and not be very good.
That's awesome. You guys have shared a lot of wisdom already. But I guess the last question we usually ask is, do you have like a bumper sticker, like just kind of like a one sentence thing you want to leave the Williams Summit community with?
You want to do one each? You want to go first?
You
want me to go first?
You got something?
I have that one.
Yeah.
I think we've kind of spoken about this before, but if you have an idea, just launch and get something out there as quick as you can, because you're going to end up changing it anyway. And there are people who are going to be early adopters, and they're going to sort of want and gravitate towards a product, even if it's a little faulty at first, which is kind of what we found with people who ordered from us at the beginning. But once you have that product out there, you're going. Whereas like that's the difficult first step is to like get on the treadmill and get going. But I would say once you do that, it makes things much easier as opposed to putting so much work into an initial product. And then even if you do get to the point of launching it, you're going to have to change it anyway. So you're better off launching something before, so you have more data to go work off of in the time you would have been working on the product.
Kind of spent that time listening to you, but I think I'm gonna steal one from I think a pretty famous quote, but just do it.
A good one.
Actually, the Nike logo.
Oh, perfect.
But actually,
got mine right here.
I mean, put yourself out there. Don't be afraid. Also, I mean, we are going into our senior year, but you don't have to wait that long. You can. Williams is pretty awesome. There's a lot of opportunities for you. So really try to take advantage of every moment you got here.
Absolutely.